The Christmas story is called Good News, and rightfully so. It was and is amazing news of tremendous hope. It's good news to the outcast and hurting, the imprisoned and infirmed, the oppressed and the orphaned. Now, a baby was born, and with him came the hope of humanity. Yet the baby didn't stay a baby. He grew up to become a king and liberator and redeemer. He leveled the scales of justice and put falsehood to death and shined a light on truth. The Christmas story is wonderful news for many. Yet here's the great untold truth about Christmas. The lie of Christmas is that the story of the season is great news for everyone. While the good news is available to everyone, not everyone receives and responds to the news as they should. When someone fails to be transformed by the Christmas message, the good news of the season becomes tremendously bad news. The announcement of who Jesus will be and the growing up of Jesus into that person is horrible news for many people. We can see that response in many leaders of the time. Herod sensed it immediately, so he gave the decree to kill all the baby boys in hopes of killing Jesus. The Pharisees and Sadducees felt it later as they began to conspire against Jesus. The people felt it even later as they agreed to free Barabbas over him. What some call good news, others see as bad news. We can see why. If the announcement is made of a coming king, that's great news if you don't like the current king. But it's horrible news if you are the current king. When my kids were younger, my son had to learn a very important lesson. His sister wasn't in charge. She thought she was, and she made a very convincing case to him that she was. Time and time again, I would hear him crying, and when I would ask what was wrong, he would say, "Ella said I can't do blank." Whether it was eat a pizza or watch his favorite TV show or play with some toy or breathe, Ella would tell Silas he couldn't do something, and Silas would assume that Ella was the boss. In those moments, Silas and I would go through the same old routine. I would ask Silas, "Who's in charge?" And he would always say, "Mommy." And I would agree and ask, "All right, who else is in charge?" And eventually, after listing most grandparents, teachers, and adults that he knew, he would finally say, "You are, Daddy." And I would encourage him and say, "That's right. Daddy is in charge." And Daddy said, "You could eat pizza or play with a toy. So it doesn't matter what Ella says." That was tremendous news to Silas. This news brought liberation from a ferocious dictator and freedom and service to a benevolent leader. It was great news for Silas, but it was horrible news for Ella. She had gone from being the chief ruler of her own imaginary empire to now being a subject to my empire. She had gone from making up all the rules to having to submit to the rules made up by another. It was horrible news. As that was for Ella, so Christmas is for many of us. If Jesus is the king, I'm not. Some see that as horrible news. But the truth is, it's great news. I need saving, and I can't save myself. Thankfully, there is a king to whom I can easily submit, and his lordship brings peace. The lie of Christmas is that everybody will appreciate the truth that Jesus is the king. The fact is that many won't. But for those of us who do, it is tremendously good news.